Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to the Inside Strategic Coach podcast with Dan Sullivan. Dan, I am particularly excited about this conversation because you've been talking about something the last month or two in the workshops that, to my mind, really lays out a whole new set of possibilities for entrepreneurs. And since entrepreneurs are often the ones forging a new path anyway, but you in your own way just always sees a little bit further than anyone else does. So can you talk about how entrepreneurs tend to start off? We talked about rugged individualism in our last podcast, but what you see is now possible, because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this the way that you are.
Mm-hmm. When I explain over the next few minutes what I'm now seeing because of a jump to the next level that we've made in Strategic Coach, we've created a new program called the Game Changer. You can't think certain kinds of thoughts until you've performed certain types of actions. And the action I had to do was to take a look at the 10 Times program and really follow closely some of the extraordinary innovation that's happening on the way to 10 Times that a lot of our entrepreneurs have done. And I've noticed that they've reached a point where their thinking is almost too good for the company that they've created. What I mean by that, they've gone 10 times. The first entrepreneur that signed up for the Game Changer program is a wonderful client from Mumbai in India. In 6 years in the 10 Times program, he had taken his company, which is a architectural design company in India, and he had gone 15 times in 6 years. And if you met him, you'd know why he's the type of person who could do that, because he's very, very open to other people's capabilities. But he wanted to take another jump with his company, and that is that he felt that frequently the projects that he got, he was dealing with bad design in the first place. So he was kind of correcting development plans that at best he could take what they had and make it a lot better. But he had this dream that he could actually be there at the ground floor when a project is just bare land. And he was going to develop projects, but he would be a partner. So his architectural design abilities would be right there from the beginning with large construction companies and contractors. So he needed to make a jump. And the way that I position it, I said, the first thing that happens in Strategic Coach is you go from rugged individualism as an entrepreneur to the point where you have unique ability teamwork around you. And that unique ability teamwork becomes self-managing after a while, so that you're freed up from the actual management of the teamwork. You have managers in place who are very skilled at managing what already exists in the company, and therefore you can have more and more focus on new things that you're going to create. But a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet and have been in Strategic Coach have gotten to a point where they've gone 10 times. They have great free time. They have great lifestyle and everything, but they're still hitting their head on a ceiling. And what I say is they've conquered rugged individualism inside their own company, but their company is a rugged individualist company. In other words, they still see themselves as isolated from the marketplace and that they would really like to grow in. And they have to make a jump on the company level the same way that they made a jump on the individual level. And that is to create what I call game changer collaboration in the marketplace. And what this means is that your company has really, really great, unique capabilities, and you've proven you can go 10 times with it. And I just face them. The question is, what would have to happen if you wanted to go 100 times now? And it's really interesting. And in order to make this easier, I say to them immediately, okay, I want you to take your best year, best revenue year that you've ever had, multiply by 100. And you can just see that. I mean, some of them have been in coach for, 25 years. And they say, 100 times, oh my gosh. And the truth is they couldn't go 100 times. Okay, they couldn't go 100 times because immediately they'd have to go back into non-unique ability activities themselves, and they would be faced with enormous organizational complexity to actually do that, or they'd have to bring in outside investors. They'd have to do mergers and acquisitions. So they say, maybe I should just pack it in and retire right now. Get a good price for my company or, hand it off and I can just go out and retire. And I said, well, that's one avenue, but I've noticed that people aren't very happy when they do that, especially if you're still strong and you may have put 30 years in, but you're still young. And maybe there's another path. And I said, why don't you really explore what it would take to go 100 times and say what capabilities, not on an individual basis, what capabilities from the standpoint of another company that if you could do a collaboration with another company, you wouldn't have to change internally. The other company wouldn't have to change internally, but you just put the capabilities, both 10 times companies, put them together, and 10 times 10 equals 100. You could do this with a handshake because the moment you see it, you don't own the other company doesn't own you. You know it will work if a handshake replaces lawyers. In other words, that you don't put anything at risk as far as your own company, and they don't put any risk. You're just cooperating in the marketplace to take 2 10 times capability companies and creating a game changer idea. And it would be all new business that the two of you would just share. You would do your part, they would do their part. But this company wanted to go into India. This is the game changer, and he's so excited. He's so excited. He says, first of all, we're going to do it in India, then we'll go throughout the Middle East and do it in other countries. But it was like an agreement that happened at breakfast or lunch, and they said, we're all for it. So just in the same way that rugged individuals have to overcome their lack of trust about other individuals being part of their company, now you have to go through another thing that this would be a trust relationship in the marketplace. But you're not putting your own company at risk here. Just like an individual who's got real abilities is not putting their own abilities at risk by adding other abilities. Here you're adding massive amount of other capability, but it comes in the form of another company. So to be in the Game Changer program in Strategic Coach, you already have to have that collaboration before you come into Strategic Coach. I have to tell you, I'm a real internet nut, and I've looked at models like this, and I don't see that model out there. It always that one company buys the other company, or it's always legal, and then you have to have a massive team of lawyers to protect against the downside. And I said, no, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to provide capabilities and putting capabilities together. There are some qualities of mind that have to be there on the part of the other company, and that is that they have come to the same conclusion that they would like to go to 100 times, and they know they can't do it inside, so that they would have to go out into the marketplace and find a like-minded, similarly motivated, excited about the future as they are. Well, we started with 33 in the first Game Changer, and all 33 of them had this type of collaboration.
Yeah.
And they were just enormously excited. It was almost like I took them back to the very beginning of their career, and they had more excitement than they've ever had, and they got so excited about this. There's a whole thought process that we have in the 10 Times program to get ready for this. But I'm afraid that the only solution for most entrepreneurs who don't want to do this is retirement. You're going to have to pack it in.
Well, one of the things I was thinking as you were talking about 100 times is that there's something incredibly renewing about it. It's a little bit like you're back to the beginning. It gets you out of the day-to-day mindset or habits that you have. Possibilities are much, much bigger. And you also know you don't know everything yet. So as an entrepreneur, it's actually incredibly exciting. And you have more capabilities and confidence than you did when you started. So there's almost no downside. I mean, obviously there's wherewithal in terms of choosing the right people and making sure that they're also ambitious and like-minded. And one of the points, and we've talked about this in a previous podcast, is that cash cannot be the number one motivator in the relationship. It needs to be confidence or connections or capabilities. And that's exciting when you know you're building something together.
Well, cash is already taken care of. You have a 10 times company that is your lifestyle's handled. I mean, within your own company, cash continues to be generated. As a matter of fact, the business opportunities that are opened up by the collaboration with the other company actually increases the cash capabilities for your starting company. So nothing is lost, but your image in the marketplace changes. You immediately get a multiplier of reputation out in the marketplace.
Right.
Your credibility is much higher. And the reason is because the other company has unique abilities that you can count on, and you don't have to reproduce them inside your own company.
Which is very freeing. And I think one of the important distinctions, again, this is why I think this is a really new thought for most entrepreneurs, is that we're not talking M&A here.
No.
We're not talking mergers and acquisitions, which is how most people build their capabilities. And you're talking about cooperation across the table with a handshake and building something, 10 times 10, which is kind of wild. No one else has ever described this pathway before.
I was at Genius Network, and an entrepreneur who's becoming really quite famous. He's actually not in Strategic Coach, but he's presenting his dilemma to the Genius Network. He's a big player in his field. He's become nationally famous in the United States. So a private equity firm came to him and he said, "We'd like to go into partnership with you because we think your model can go worldwide and everything." And it was all handshake and this is so exciting. We're going to do this together. And a week before there was an agreement signed, he got a 500-page document from the lawyers in the other firm. And he said, up until now, we could have done the entire deal on a single sheet of paper. But all of a sudden, he said, I couldn't even read the 500-page document because it was all the way that all the risk would be on my side and none of the risk would be on their side. And they wanted me to sign this. And I said, well, that's not a collaboration.
Right.
Essentially, they want to buy you. And who knows what they'll do with your company after they've bought it? Who knows what will happen to you after you do it? And that's typical for the private equity. Usually they'll buy something and repackage it and sell it off 5 years later. And they just see you, your entire career, all your creativity and everything. They just see it as a commodity. They want to buy a commodity and they want to have 100% control over the commodity, and they'll do whatever they want with it. So I was just sitting there from that experience, and I said, well, that's not very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll get a big cash payout, but all control goes out. Here in the Game Changer model, you maintain complete and total ownership and control of the company that you've built. And if anything, the opportunities are going to increase vastly than you could do it if you were just operating within your own company, but it's the addition of the other company. So I don't call it teamwork because I want to confine that unique ability teamwork, but I call it game changer collaboration. I haven't seen this model anywhere except inside Strategic Coach, and I think it's because of all the participants in the Game Changer program have mastered free days, focus days, buffer days, largest check, unique ability teamwork, self-managing companies. So they have this build-up over years of tremendous, what I would say, inside their own company capabilities. It's self-managed, it's self-multiplying. But as one of the clients, he's sort of a site designer, someone who's in architecture and design, and he said, what convinced me to sign up for the Game Changer was that our company just had the biggest deal that we've ever had, biggest project we ever had, huge profitability. And I looked at it and I wasn't excited at all. And he says, I've run out of excitement inside my own model. But he said, the collaboration I have returns me back to the greatest excitement I've ever had for my future. And I've been at this for 30 years, and I'm more excited now than when I started my career. And to have that happen, in your 50s or 60s, and a lot of our clients are at least in their 50s, and to have that sense of excitement, I think is a fundamental entrepreneurial breakthrough.
I completely agree. And you're actually now seeing how that impacts us as a company, which I find very exciting too. So there's you've described it as, okay, before you were trying to push people into taking free focus and buffer days and having a self-managing company. But now you've kind of flipped that around. So talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. I didn't realize what had happened to my own thinking until the week after I had done the Game Changer program, which, by the way, was the easiest workshop I've ever done in 29 years of doing workshops. And the reason is because each of the Game Changers had a model that everybody in the room was fascinated. And it's a common model that everybody who's a game changer has a common model. So everybody else's collaboration is of intense interest to them because they're all directed at entirely different marketplaces and entirely different industries. And there's all sorts of bypasses and shortcuts that each individual has found that's of enormous benefit to everybody else in the room. And then we had a real star, somebody who's been at this model for about 7-8 years without realizing that this was actually the model that he was following. So I put him in the spotlight, and he just walked through his model, and everybody was taking massive notes and asking him questions and everything else. And I'm sitting there, and I said, this is a really, really an easy way of coaching. I just put these game changers in the room from each other, and I have structures that I've created.
It was very collaborative.
Yeah, very, very collaborative. And he just was so forthcoming in terms of sharing what he had learned and how he was going about it. And a lot of it was technology-based, and he had technologies that were really useful to the other people. And I was looking at the next 25 years of my life, which, starting from today, takes me to 99. And I said, this is going to be sheer pleasure. I said, I am going to be so on my toes and so alert and so curious. So I did it partially for my own future well-being, my own future being alive and being excited about being an entrepreneur. But in transforming my own future for myself, I had to create this game changer structure because after you've heard about 50 10-time success stories, the number 51 isn't as exciting as number 1.
That's true.
And I'm really happy. And the reason is, so what do they do now? And I had to figure out, after they've multiplied their own internal success by 10 times, 15 times, I've got people who have done it 100 times inside, but they've reached the natural limit. They can't go another 100 times.
Right.
The whole notion that they could go another 100 times. Now, not all the money is theirs, but they're in an activity that actually is very exciting. And it's very interesting. We did a little exercise where everybody multiplied by 100 times their best revenue year, and we have 500 plus in the 10 times program. We added all the 100 times up, and out of our 500 entrepreneurs, the total was right about $1.7 trillion if they did that. And I said, well, that's as big as Texas. I said, that's bigger than Canada, actually. That's bigger than the GNP of Canada. And I said, now, not all the money is yours, but you're participating in an activity where that amount of money is going to be produced.
Wow.
And would that be exciting? We're essentially creating our own little economy. Well, it's not a little economy, it's a big economy. And to know that your life is just going to be filled with breakthrough ideas and breakthrough methods that are coming from the other game changers, isn't that a wonderful way to spend your entrepreneurial life after you've done all the hard work? Wouldn't it be nice to be in a situation where, because of the 10 times capabilities you've created inside your own company, joined with the 10 times capabilities with another company, or more than one company, because once you see how collaboration works, you start seeing. I had one client who I just met last weekend, and he's 4 weeks away from his Game Changer workshop. And he said, I've seen dozens and dozens of other collaborations we can do now using this model.
I love it.
And he said, it doesn't really cost that much.
No,
Yeah.
no, it really doesn't.
It doesn't use up that much time of our company. It doesn't use up money of our company.
Right.
It's just creating new game changer projects out in the world and each player doing their part of the new value creation.
I love it. You're always someone who's creating a bigger future, as you said, for yourself, but you're also someone who does that for our clients too. Now, Dan, it seems to me you're in a different position than you used to be.
Yeah.
Whereas you're kind of, if I think of this as a mountain that people are climbing, you're at the top and you're kind of saying, come on up. It's great up here. Is that your sense of it?
Yeah, and that's the change that I saw because I had 4 10 times workshops. All my workshops each quarter are within a 2-month period, and then I have basically about 6 weeks between workshop quarters, lots of free days. But the other thing is then I belong to other groups like Genius Network and Abundance 360, and I'm able to go out and be a participant in other people's coaching programs, essentially. So I had those 4 10 times workshops, and I was a totally different coach than I have ever been. I mean, the shift in me as a coach in those 4 workshops was profound. And the reason is an image came into my mind that my entire coaching career, I felt like I was at the bottom of the hill and I was pushing entrepreneurs up the hill. And ever since the Game Changer workshop, I feel I'm at the top of the hill and I'm just saying, come on up, come up to the top of the hill. And it's fundamentally changed my whole notion about who we should be attracting to come into all levels of strategic coach. We should more and more create the context and also create the tools for people who, even if they're just starting the signature program at the very basic level of strategic coach, they would have the desire to be a game changer in the marketplace as they grow as an entrepreneur inside their own company, that more and more they would be a game changer, able to have their company collaborate in the fashion that we've been talking about here. So this is a profound shift. We're going from a push model to a pull model. Everybody who's listening to Inside Strategic Coach here will notice the shift in our image, and it's a shift in our image of who we are. We now think we're the center of people who already are but want to grow as game changer entrepreneurs. Not every entrepreneur is a game changer, but those who are, and there's a set of mindsets that you have which would allow you to be a game changer. And I can have someone in the very first workshop of Strategic Coach right now who, if you talk to them about this, they would immediately understand that they want to be a game changer someday. And I have people who've been in the program for 20 years who are getting ready for retirement. So it's not the amount of time you've been in Strategic Coach, it's what your big game plan is for when you grow to a certain level and you have the internal capabilities that you could do a collaboration with another company. So this is a profound shift. It's almost like we're starting over again, Strategic Coach. Right back to the strategy circle, which got me launched and got the Strategic Coach program launched, was the strategy circle exercise. So I'm feeling very young. At 74, I'm feeling younger than 44 years ago when I was a rugged individualist just going into the marketplace. So it's a marvelous place to be, and it's shared by all the other people who are in the Game Changer. I mean, all of them say, gee, it's just like years and years of scar tissue and a sense of burden has fallen away. They feel enormously freed up. And I think that this corresponds to the original definition of entrepreneurship. Jean-Baptiste Say in 1804 said entrepreneurs are individuals who take resources from a lower level of productivity to a higher level of productivity. Well, this is a profound 100 times increase in resource.
And you're the resource. Well, I love that this idea is so renewing for you. And also, it's one of those things where nothing is lost and everything is gained.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of what I really appreciate. It's so many models in business where, like, okay, I win, you lose. Even a client I was talking to at our couples connection recently, he's had private equity people kind of nibbling at the outside. I said, well, what percentage ownership do they want? He said 51. I said, ooh, might want to think about that.
Might as well give them 100.
Yeah, exactly.
If they have 51, they have 100.
They've got the whole thing. And this is one of the most creative, innovative, groundbreaking, interesting, and grounded entrepreneurs I've ever met. So I'm like, oh, I can just see a bad future if that were to take hold. So I appreciate that everything's gained and nothing is lost in this process. And for someone who's incredibly passionate about unique ability teamwork, this is a multiplier of unique ability teamwork, and where it's not just the individual anymore, it's the actual company and collaboration, which is when companies have unique teamwork, and therefore the byproduct is being a game changer. So I love this model, Dan, and I'm sure other people are just as energized about it as I am. No one else, I've never heard it, I'm out there talking to people all the time, have laid out such a positive, expansive, grounded path that you are. So I really appreciate this level of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for this opportunity to sum up what I've learned after 4 weeks of launching the Game Changer program. It's the most profound entrepreneurial shift that I've ever experienced, but I think it's true for all the participants so far. If you're listening, you're in Strategic Coach and you're still developing your company, there's a certain level that you have to feel very confident that you've gotten to, where probably no matter how big the achievements are of the company you have, it's probably not going to excite you as much as successes you've had in the past. And you have a feeling you're more or less going to be doing the same thing for the rest of your career. And this is a chance to jump out and create more massively than you've ever experienced inside your own 10 times company.
Well, that's exciting. I love that. And I think once people know that that's a possibility, it will actually accelerate their progress if that's something that people want to do. So I think by laying the path and the groundwork, it'll really accelerate everyone's
Well, I think if you have it as a goal, and you're not there yet, but you have it as a goal, I think it'll accelerate all the steps that you're taking now just to make the company you're in more successful, because you'll want to get to the point where you can make this next jump. And if you know that there's a jump far, far bigger than you've ever made in your future, that makes you young again.
It does. It makes having a self-managing company a necessity, not just a nice to have, but it's something that is a requirement so you can go on to even bigger things.
Yes.
I love this, Dan. Well, thank you. And I'm excited that Strategic Coach can now be known as the World Center for Game Changer Entrepreneurs. That's an exciting future for us, too. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.